Pleasant greetings to all. Today we hear Jesus say, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate, for many, I tell you, will attempt to enter, but will not be strong enough." So let us examine what lies behind the narrow gate of salvation. Why the church is important to achieve that most precious treasure. We shall look at some examples of real people who discovered this treasure, as well as examine why people leave the Catholic Church. A challenging task awaits each of us Catholics to rediscover our treasure through the narrow door.
Many of you have seen the inspiring picture of American Marines planting the American flag on Iwo Jima during World War II. The man who took that picture was an Associated Press photographer, Joe Rosenthal, a Jew who had become a Catholic. He braved minefields, shrapnel, artillery, machine gun, and a mortar fire to record that scene. He showed the same courage in becoming a Catholic. His family and friends accused him of turning against the faith of his fathers. Nevertheless, Joe Rosenthal lived his new faith to the full. He made this statement: "The day before we went ashore on Iwo Jima, I attended Mass and received Holy Communion." If a man is genuinely convinced he has the truth, and still neglects it, he is a traitor. And that goes not only for my Jewish friends who fail to attend the synagogue each Saturday, but also for my friends who miss Mass on Sunday. Like Joe Rosenthal, many courageous souls make sacrifices to become Catholics. Jesus says, "Some are last who will be first, and some are first who will be last." Today we see many Catholics falling away from the faith. Some leave the church. The majority who heard and that Jesus were Jews, the chosen people of God, the first to be called. Thus, we would expect them to follow Christ, the promised one for whom they had been waiting. Comparatively, few people did follow him. Instead, many Gentiles, non-Jews, did follow Christ. The Jews who turned away from Christ are the present-day Catholics, who turned away from him by leaving the church for other non-Catholic faiths. The Gentiles who followed Christ are the modern converts who turn to Christ. This is an invitation for us Catholics to rediscover what Joe Rosenthal discovered within the Catholic faith. Some precious treasure we probably have been taking for granted all these years. This is also an invitation to come back home to those who have wandered away from the Catholic Church. But, mind you, it is no easy journey, because we need to pass through the narrow door of humility.
Let us now examine this precious treasure we already possess behind that narrow door.
Someone asked Jesus, "Lord, will only a few people be saved?" He answered them, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate. For many, I tell you, will attempt to enter, but will not be strong enough." Let us go directly to this treasure chest of the Catholic faith. This chest is marked. Outside the church, there is no salvation, extra ecclesiam, nulla salus, in Latin. This is a doctrine of the Catholic faith, often misunderstood, that was taught by Jesus Christ to his apostles, preached by the fathers, defined by popes and councils, and piously believed by the faithful in every age of the church. This does not mean that just because one is not a Catholic there automatically is no hope for salvation. It is important to ask, then, who is inside and outside the church? First, who are outside the church? 1. Those who know and are convinced that the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus founded, but still do not become one of its members. And 2. Those who, through their own grave fault or neglect, do not realize that the Catholic Church is the church Jesus founded and even refuse to consider the Catholic Church's claim to be the true church. Then, who are inside the church? 1. Those who are actual baptized members. 2. Those who are not actual members, but who sincerely believed that the church to which they belong is the true church. So, the actual members constitute the body of the church. And non-Catholics, who are honestly convinced that their sect, denomination, or their religion is the true church, provided that they are in a state of grace, that is, they have not committed a sin of grave matter, that is, a grave sin committed with full knowledge of the sinner, or have not committed the sin with the deliberate consent of the sinner, they, too, are members of the Catholic Church, that is, by way of extension called spiritual membership. Note, however, that just membership within the true church is not enough for salvation. But, the members must live lives which are in accordance with the church's teaching, avoiding sin and staying in God's grace, if they are to be saved. Here, we point out that the actual members have an obvious advantage over those who are just spiritual members. The actual members can partake of the 7 grace-giving sacraments, like the sacraments of reconciliation and the Eucharist. The actual members also could be at peace, resting on the promises which Christ gave to St. Peter and his successors, that he would protect them from error in matters of faith and morals. The spiritual members do not have these advantages. For that reason, Catholics can never say that sincere non-Catholics should just be left in their sincerity. Why? Because Christ wills that all men enter his visible church, and he wills that all, as one body, confess this faith. He wants all to have the same benefits of the sacraments and to share in the graces that flow to the actual members through his church's ministry. Catholics, then, should realize the gifts that they possess and have them arrive to the fullness of the truth. And they should desire to more fully ensure their salvation by offering to others that same gift, that same treasure of fullness of salvation.
Let us now briefly look at some inspiring examples of real people who discovered this treasure. I call them homecomers.
Bishop Fulton J. Sheen once said, "There are not more than 100 people in the world who truly hate the Catholic Church, but there are millions who hate what they perceive to be the Catholic Church." Thus, for anyone who has been trained and raised to be anti-Catholic, a decision to become a Catholic is never a light choice. The long history of hatred and prejudice toward the Catholic Church affected many converts. And there was always the narrow door. Some overcame their own anti-Catholic biases, then faced a disdain of family or friends. It is not uncommon for converts to sacrifice a position of honor or prestige. Some sacrifice their careers. One of the most important influences among 20th century converts was Cardinal John Henry Newman, an Anglican priest who became a Catholic in 19th century England. Another important influence was Blaise Pascal, a French philosopher, mathematician, and an avowed atheist, who converted to Catholicism. Scott Hahn was a Presbyterian minister, a top student in a seminary class, a brilliant scripture scholar and militantly anti-Catholic, until he reluctantly began to discover that his enemy had all the right answers. Kimberly, his wife, also a top-notch theology student in the seminary, is the daughter of a well-known Protestant minister and went through a tremendous dark night of the soul after Scott converted to Catholicism. Like John Henry Newman, Scott was self-driven to find the truth. And he was dedicated to following the truth wherever it led him, even if it led him to Rome and would cost him dearly. But it first led him through that narrow door. He eventually lost his job, his position in the evangelical society. He lost many of his friends and his vocation as a minister, but he lost less than what he gained, the full truth of the gospel. That was when the former persecutor became a great champion and defender of the faith. Scott Hahn entered the Catholic Church at the Easter Vigil in 1986, and Kimberly in 1990. Rome Sweet Home describes their process of conversion together. Visit his website at scotthahn.com. Stephen K. Ray, a teacher of biblical studies in the Baptist Church, and his wife Janet, also converted to Catholicism, passing through the narrow door. He and his wife knew they would lose their family and friends once they converted to the Catholic Church. As expected, his father was enraged when he found out about their plan. His teenage children refused to convert along with them. Eventually, their family was formally received into the Roman Catholic Church on Pentecost Sunday in 1994. Stephen calls himself a missionary to those who do not know Jesus Christ, to those who are Christians but not Catholics, and to those who were born and raised as Catholics but have no clue how blessed they are. Visit his website at catholicconvert.com. He is now a staunch defender of the Catholic faith.
Wow, very inspiring testimonies right there, right? But we ask the question now, what made them join the Catholic Church? And a much more relevant question perhaps is, why do some Catholics, including priests and nuns, leave the Catholic Church? Interesting.
Why do these people join the Catholic Church? Because they want to be sure about what they do and what they believe. Because they realize it is the church that Jesus Christ founded. Because they really and truly want to receive Jesus in the Holy Communion. Because of the beauty and power of our public worship. Then, why do some Catholics, including priests and nuns, leave the Catholic Church? Because of pride. They prefer their own opinions to the truths of our divinely guided spiritual family. Because of passion, often they are involved in an impossible marriage. Because of prejudice, they jump to a decision before they know all the facts. Because of ignorance, they do not know the real meaning of being a true follower of Christ. Fallen away Catholics need our sympathy and our prayer. As God said through his prophet in our first reading, "I came to gather nations of every language." By contrast, those who do not feed their faith, who do not treasure their faith, who do not live their faith, God will permit to lose their faith.
Let me leave you, my sisters and brothers, with the challenge. We are already actual members of this church we call home. Shouldn't we do an extra something to rediscover and reappreciate the beauty of the precious treasure we already possess? What do you think?
Nicole Kidman, the award-winning actress, was raised Catholic and has increasingly returned to her religious roots since her separation from Scientologist Tom Cruise. She said, "Catholicism guides me. I certainly have a strong belief. I try to go to church regularly, and I try to go to confession." Ramon Antonio Gerard Estevez once said in an interview, "I have not always practiced my Catholicism. I left it as a youth, and I lived for many years without faith." We know him as Martin Sheen, a name he adopted in honor of his beloved, the Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Then, he said that during filming of Apocalypse Now, "I fell gravely ill and was at death's door. I had a crisis of conscience. At the same time, I was divided inside. I had no spirituality. I had no idea how to combine the will of the Spirit with the work of the flesh. So, Martin Sheen began his journey back to God. He said, at one point, when I returned to the church, I had been away for 15 years, perhaps more. I was a man without needs. I had no love, no respect. So for me, the moment I was born to the faith, I knew it. I knew it. I thought I am home. I am home. I am free. Today, Martin Sheen calls himself a radical Catholic. He says, the essence of the gospel of Jesus was extremely radical, and that's why they killed him. I don't limit the sacramentalness of life to church. It is in community and brokenness. Sacramentalness of life, sacredness of life. You have to stand against darkness. Martin Sheen attends parish council meetings, delivers food to poor families during Thanksgiving, visits the Venice Clinic, and washes dishes at the Catholic Worker. Indeed, a radical Catholic Christian who had rediscovered the treasure beyond the narrow door of the Catholic home. My Catholic brothers and sisters, have you rediscovered this treasure beyond the narrow door of humility?
May God bless our hearts with humility. Amen.